Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. How you doing today, Janice?
Good, Mark. G'day, everybody. And yeah, it's really nice here today in Vegas.
Yeah.
We're in the high 90s and beautiful. The sun is out. It's a nice day.
It's funny. People
think
think
I have to be inside.
Well, people think it's funny when you go like, "Oh, it's in the 90s and that's comfortable," because most people would go like, "That's hot." But for us here, it's dry, so it actually feels really nice. And we're in October now, so it's going to get down in the 80s and 70s very soon, and that's really nice weather. So we're doing really good as far as that goes.
Well, and I'm still swimming. Elizabeth and I, we go out there. She is swimming up a storm, Mark. You wouldn't believe it. She's got the breaststroke down and she's got her doggy paddle down and she can swim on her back. She's doing really good for a 4-year-old.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I just want to remind everybody, if you would, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button, notification button. It helps us out. But Janice, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what we're going to be doing today?
Yeah, today we have a special guest who has been friends with me for quite a long time on Facebook, and we've communicated back and forth. We had a mutual friend, Charlie Rush, who got into Scientology around the same time as him, and I've known Charlie for about 50 years. He'd married one of my best friends, Annie Tidman, later broker. And so, it was when I went to San Jose last year, I actually finally got to meet him. So it was good. And we have a lot of mutual friends. So our guest today is Ed Berwick. And let's bring Ed on.
Welcome, Ed.
Welcome. So Ed and I had not actually met until last year. I went up to San Jose for Brothers Broken or Broken Brothers. I always get that twisted.
You had it right the first time.
Brothers Broken.
Correct.
So I went up there for the release of the film that Jeff and Robbie Levin had put together. Jeff had done all the work on it. And I knew Jeff. He'd been on the ship, and he was part of a music band at Celebrity Center and one of the original staff at Celebrity Center. And his brother, Robbie, I'd never met, but we'd talked a lot on the phone after I'd left the Sea Org. Anyway, so I got to meet Robbie, and then a surprise friend I got to meet was Ed. So that was really nice. Then there's a couple of pictures
we'll show them there. You want to show them right now or no?
Yeah, we may as well show them right now.
All right, hold on. I got it.
There it is. Yeah, so here's Jeff and myself and Spanky Taylor and Robbie. And this was at their event.
Jeff Levin and Robbie Levin. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. The Brothers Broken. And here we are with Spanky, Sandy Holman, Jeff, myself, and Hannah Whitfield or Hannah Eltringham. And there's Sandy with Ed. And a bunch of these, like Spanky knew Robbie and Jeff, and she used to do promo for their band as The People. And Sandy went to the same school as them, and Ed went to the same school. And it was their own little group that kind of all got in around the same time. And here we are 50 years later, and they're all still friends and having a good time. So that was kind of nice.
Hey, Ed, why don't you let everybody know, our viewers, because a lot of people aren't involved in Scientology or never were in, and there are people who are former Scientologists. Give everybody just a brief rundown of, your time in Scientology and, when you got in, and just briefly, because we're going to go into more detail on the stories.
Certainly. So back in April of '68, Al Rabisi saw a bumper sticker that said, ask me about Scientology, the road to total freedom. And Al pulled Jeff and Robbie and me and about 20 other people in, literally within weeks, into the center in Santa Clara, which was a hole-in-the-wall office building. And we all kind of just got together and did it and went clear within 2 years or so. And I mean, really, 20 of us, all around the band people. And I was 17 at the start. Robbie wasn't even 18 yet. We had to get our parents' permission. That was me. And by the time we hit, say, 71, I was clear. Everybody else was clear too. And by 76, I had done the briefing course and had audited and had a good time. I mean, literally had a good time. It was not a bad time. It was a Camelot experience, Scientology wise. And two of the best things I've ever done were the briefing course and going clear. They changed my life immeasurably in very short periods of time. Robbie,
so you got trained up. You got trained up to be a Scientology auditor and did the briefing course, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, and you did that at Asho, right?
Right, on West Temple Street.
Yeah, let me find that picture of
That's
Asho
right.
back
Keep
then.
going. There it is.
It
There.
was more or less across the street from the Rampart Police Station. Not exactly, but close to it.
And that was right next to Tommy's hamburger stand.
No, it was down the street. It was
down the street.
2 blocks away.
Oh, close enough. Everyone walked there and would eat their hamburgers.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a great bagel store too, not far. I mean, for lunch, I either had hit the bagel store or Tommy's.
And then how long did you stay in? How long did you stay in Scientology? Did you get up to the OT levels? Or
76. I did quote unquote OT3, but after 2-3 days of it, I was so filled with bullshit on it that I just started writing reports saying I'd done it. And I went to Disneyland with my girlfriend and had a good time. I just didn't want to get declared. So I gave them an FNs whenever they wanted to see me. But I did not do OT3. It's just so much bullshit that I couldn't believe it.
Okay. Now I have a question on this photograph here.
Yes.
This was during your days when you were training to be an auditor, or you were an auditor at Asho?
This is my girlfriend, and we lived together in her house in Lafayette and my house in San Jose. And this was us doing auditor report forms and admin and stuff. And as you can see, we sat in desks and were inside and really took ourselves seriously. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's just funny to see someone out there sunbathing while they're writing up a session. I assume she's writing up a session.
That's right. We both were, only I was behind the camera, so I took the picture. But yeah, we did not take Scientology seriously like Scientology took Scientology seriously.
Right. Okay.
But we enjoyed it.
Yeah. And you made some great friends while you were in.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to bring up one that a lot of people will know her from having been in the Sea Org. This is Ed with his car Scientology symbol hanging around his neck. Those were made for bumpers of cars.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yeah.
And
you were Flavor Flav before Flavor Flav, then, right? Having the big medallion around you.
It was something. It was hippie times, and it stood out, and it was a good thing.
Yeah, I noticed Robbie Levin did that in the people photo, which I'll show again later. But this is Ed and Laurie Noonan. People will know Laurie they'll know Laurie on the ship. She was Laurie Douglas. She was married to Mike Douglas. And then once we moved to Clearwater, she married Dave Englehart and became Laurie Englehart. And I
And
believe
that's how I know her.
I believe she's still Laurie Englehart, and that
She
she's
is.
still in the Sea Org.
She
Ed,
is.
you know, she is still in the Sea Org?
And her daughter is in the Sea Org, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah, I remember when she was pregnant, and I remember when, the daughter was a baby. I don't even remember her name, but that was probably 50 years ago.
I can send you a photo of her daughter.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I got Lori in Scientology. She and Charlie Rush are two people I got into Scientology. And I am so sorry. Period.
Yeah, it was a shame Charlie passed away without getting to see us all beforehand, because he'd been in the Sea Org for like 45, 50 years when he passed away he was a pot washer or something like that. But he'd been an incredible drummer.
Correct. And I saw him fairly frequently. I mean, several times a year for
Oh, okay.
up, and I have pictures of him drumming, maybe 2 years before he died,
Oh, no
and
kidding.
other pictures of him a year or so before he died. He was not looking happy, but he enjoyed drumming. And
Yeah.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you a question. So you obviously left Scientology, but you were never declared, so you could still talk to the people.
I think I'm probably quietly declared. I know I'm quietly declared. There was somebody who ran CC, whose name I won't mention, who told me that I was declared. And Charlie told me I was declared, but they still continued to talk to me. They do not hold that against me. Let's put it that
That's
way.
great.
But
Yeah.
we won't mention names.
No, we don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Right.
And I'm appreciating you being here despite that. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm doing my best to destroy Scientology this way.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now, after you were at ASHO, or during your days at ASHO, you used to also hang out at Celebrity Center, I guess, because Al
Correct.
Rabisi was over there with Jeff and Robbie, because they were all original staff working for my mother to open Celebrity Center.
Well, Robbie and your mom are the ones who created Celebrity Center. It was their idea.
Right.
Robbie was really good friends with your mom. I don't know what you know or don't know, but yeah. And
Yeah, we interviewed Robbie, and he went into detail that he was very close to Janice's mom, Yvonne. Yeah.
exactly. And I just had a lot of friends there, so it was a place I hung out. The Westlake Lanai is where I was staying when I was at the AO, and it was a couple of blocks over from CC. And so it was all in the same neighborhood, and a
What were you
great
doing
place
in those days? What were you doing in those days,
in
work-wise?
terms of living, or what
No, I mean, how'd you earn a living
I
in those
did.
days?
I did, clear and stuff like that down in LA, and the briefing course in LA. But in real life, I was fixing tractors in Santa Clara County.
Fixing tractors.
Yeah, I'm a farm boy. So,
Oh, okay.
Right.
so when I was in high school, I was, 16, 15, whatever, 17. And my mother would just call me in sick for a week at a time. And I'd be out in the backyard underneath a tree, fixing an engine, rebuilding a tractor, whatever. But this is 1968, and I was making 25 an hour, and that wasn't bad considering
That was a
that
lot of money.
wage was a dollar something, $1.70 maybe, I don't know. And I knew people at Lockheed who had college degrees and were making $2 an hour or whatever. So I was doing okay. By the time I was 20, 21, I was on my second house and living with my girlfriend and sharing her house in Lafayette and my house in San Jose. And together we both wallpapered each other's houses, painted, worked in the gardens, and had a good time.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, and this is what a picture of you sitting in your dad's lap on the first tractor you ever drove.
Yeah. And I could actually drive a tractor back and forth when I was 3. And I was driving all over by the time I was 12. I mean,
Right.
on streets, on the farm, what have you. It really didn't matter. I was a good driver by the time I was 12.
Right. Okay.
Consequently, my kids all learned to drive sitting in my lap when they were 3.
Right. Right. Yeah, it kind of runs in the family doing that type of thing. So now you spent a lot of time at ASHO. You did your briefing course. You audited PCs. You were hanging out with everybody, and you started hanging out at Celebrity Center. And you mentioned in a write up to me about the old CC, and there was someone who worked with my mom and located it for her.
I don't know anything
Um,
about located her yet. No, that does not ring a bell. Sorry.
oh, what was it that Frank did?
Frank Dunn?
Yeah, Frank Dunn.
I have no idea. He and Candy were tight, and I don't know much about that at all.
Oh, okay. Because I thought Frank had something to do with mom getting the old Celebrity Center. Here's a picture of Frank. He's the tall dude in the middle in the green jacket.
Definitely
And
tall.
yeah, and then Gelda Midoff, Gelda Kitchen is right behind him. She's married to Ray Midoff, who is, both of them, as far as I know, is still in the Sea Org up at RTC.
Ray
And
Midoff
then,
is still alive?
as far as I know, I haven't heard otherwise.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And then in the middle of the picture is my mom, and standing next to her is Candy Swanson. And we've interviewed Candy before, and Candy was like one of the first auditors at Celebrity Center and helped my
She was
mom.
first auditor, wasn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was, because mom actually gave her the PCs, and Candy would just charge the money and audit them herself before mom actually set up Celebrity Center to service the celebrities. She was
Exactly.
just a little booking office helping the celebrities get bookings and go and do auditions and drill for their audition and that type of thing.
Yes.
Right. And during those days with you being involved, you did a special sign for them.
Um,
I'm
your mom had seen a sign I'd done at Santa Clara Center. And so we basically just copied the format and made it for CC. And
okay. Yeah.
it's redwood and just letters from a sign store that only closed about 10 years ago. The guy that I bought the sign letters from only recently closed his shop. I mean, it's amazing.
So
Yeah,
you cut the wood and everything, and then just
everything.
what,
I
the little
joined
vinyl letters.
There were 2 boards there that were joined together. I joined them. I did every last thing other than chop the tree down.
Janice, your microphone is breaking up a little bit when you move your hands,
Oh,
so just be careful.
okay. All right. I'll try not to move my hands. I'll try not to be Italian.
Anyway,
I'm
that
not
was
Italian.
beside the front door at CC.
Right. The front door at
On
I'm
9th
trying to go
Street,
through these.
8th Street, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, on 8th Street. Because
And
yeah,
to the right as you're facing the building.
Right. And that old building, it was a supermarket, I believe, before mom got it. And then she had to get it kind of renovated and set up. I know my dad bought the chairs for CC for so she could set up for people to have a place to sit.
Uh-huh.
But I'd heard different stories about the carpet. If you look at this picture, that's my sister-in-law getting married to my brother. Wally Burgess is giving her away. But
Uh-huh.
that carpet, there's been a lot of talk over the years about how it was all patchwork.
Right. It
They
was
didn't have, they,
patchwork quilt, so to speak. It was cheaper
yeah,
than buying new carpet, apparently, putting it all together with free labor.
right. And they didn't have any money to go buy a carpet. So they went to carpet stores and got remnants. And some even went to dumpsters and got parts of the carpet out and they patched it all together. And that was the original carpet of Celebrity Center.
It's
Yeah, it
like an
was
art
wonderful.
project. It's an art project, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it was all about art and
Yeah.
supporting the artists. Yeah. Did you, Ed, did you used to go to her little events like Poetry by Candlelight and the different
Infrequently,
events they
I would say. Yeah. There were, it was a very hippy dippy time.
hippy dippy? That's very good.
Here's another picture. That's the Celebrity Center aerial view of it, right, Janice? The old supermarket.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was Celebrity
Back
Center
to
by
being a
then. Yeah.
supermarket again, I believe. I've driven by
Yeah.
it in the last few years and it looks to me like a market.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
it was a Spanish supermarket now.
Right.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Which street is it on?
8th.
8th. And you know, you just walk two blocks down 8th Street and you come to MacArthur's Park.
Mhm.
And what was that restaurant? Was that Landry's or
Langer's. And it's still there,
Land?
but they're thinking of
It's
closing it. It's a deli. The thing about that neighborhood was it was the scummiest neighborhood in all of LA. And I'm quoting Ron on a tape before he even envisioned that area as for CC or LA org or AO or anything. There was some briefing course tape where he mentions that's the scummiest neighborhood. And it was, but when we left, when Scientology left that area, the LA org was across the street from where I lived, and AO was across the street from where I lived, and CC was down the street, and ASHA was way up a ways. But that neighborhood was filled with Scientologists walking day and night. Literally day and night, you could run into people, and it was safe. The whole Don't worry about it. The whole neighborhood was safe. And when we left that area, I read at least a full page article in the San Francisco Chronicle about how crime had gone up 1,000% around MacArthur Park, and they didn't
well.
know why.
Well, I remember in '73, my first time to America, got
How old
walking
were you
from
then?
17.
Okay.
Yeah. But I remember walking from Celebrity Center down to Lake Street where they had their birthing, the house for the staff,
Sure.
and walking to that restaurant and seeing MacArthur's Park. And I remember there was the mirror man who used to walk down the street talking to himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And then there was the rag lady who would push a shopping cart around, and I guess she had rag on her head or something.
It was orange mud. I mean, she always dressed in orange, and it was like 3 feet long, and it was a mud wig or something. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, she stood out. They both did,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
but
guy
that
who
was
talked to the mirror was just constantly telling jokes. And there were people with open sores and stuff all over MacArthur Park, and it It was a hangout at night for gays around the bathroom. It
Right.
had its own je ne quoi.
And then the Scientologists kind of, walked in and out between all these people and went between the orgs and went about going into, they had houses nearby to go do auditing sessions and then walk back and to the AO or the org.
Right, and everyone did OT1 around MacArthur Park. And Charlie Rush lived in a house that Charlie Chaplin had built.
Right.
And
that was the Lake Street house.
And because Chaplin was in films, he had his set people build it, so it was cheaply built. And that's, to say the least, it was very cheaply built. But Gloria Swanson had lived in that. That was a super hot area at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not at that point.
No, not at that point.
Well, it's funny how, then eventually they moved over by Hollywood Boulevard. And I remember in the late 70s, they had the Hollywood Inn on Hollywood Boulevard. And we had to have to walk from the Wilcox, which was the birthing for Celebrity Center. And then Celebrity Center at that point was on La Brea. But that whole area, walking there at night, I mean, you just put your focus in and just walk, because there were crazy people all over the place.
My wife came out of a movie on Hollywood, probably, and near the Hollywood, not CC, but the Hollywood birthing place.
The Hollywood Inn?
Hollywood,
The sign up and down.
Yeah,
the Hollywood Inn.
And we saw a car that had all four tires shot out from under it, being chased by cops, and there's sparks flying everywhere from all four wheels. It was hilarious, but it was very typical of that area.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, well, I was talking about the old 8th Street. I remember when my mom wanted to get out of there, and I hadn't come to the U.S. yet, so I didn't know anything of how bad it was. But I remember she got a mansion up in Los Feliz. Were you there for that? And she moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and overnight she moved up into the mansion and had everything set up and running. But then Hubbard looks at the Celebrity Center stats and goes, something changed on this date. What was it? And it was reported that Yvonne had moved Celebrity Center from 8th Street to this beautiful mansion in Los Feliz. Hubbard orders, move back. You've broken your affluence, and ordered that she move back to 8th Street to the slums. And I remember she was pretty upset about that from what I heard later on. But so she moved back to 8th Street, and overnight thing reset back up and going, and they did good until later on a mission came in with Jeff Walker and treated them all like Sea Org members, yelling and screaming rather than as people, and as volunteers and helping, and just destroyed the place again with their trying to put ethics in on the staff. But they were all there because of Yvonne trying to do, volunteer and help out and create their own careers as well.
And so many of them did.
Yeah.
I remember when Jeff Lewis had, little babies, and he went on to be a big actor, and his daughter's a big actor. I mean,
Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, Juliette. Yeah, Juliette's done well. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a wonderful time.
Yeah, and Jeff was doing all those movies with Clint Eastwood at the time.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so you used to hang out with all these people.
Right. Yeah. It was a very laid back time. It was easy going.
Right. Yeah. And yeah.
Now, did you do any auditing back in the day when you were on the briefing course and everything in LA? Did you audit people?
I tried to do as little auditing as possible on the briefing course, simply because the rules were very tight, and they were. I came from the Palo Alto area where I learned how to audit, which was listen to people, really empathize with them, and get results. I didn't worry about dotting every I and crossing every T and being perfect on anything. I
Right.
was more interested in making things happen for people. I took a lady, my wife took this lady who was 46, 48 at the time, who was a commercial artist, but she was bedridden. She could not get out of bed by herself. Literally to go to the bathroom, take a bath or anything. At 48, she had some form of arthritis, and she had been to everything. She had been to having gold shots, having acupuncture, etc. I mean, and I gave her about 18 months worth of Dianetics. And by that time, after 18 months, she was doing park horses, which is where you run a little teeny ways, you do some push-ups, you run a little teeny ways, you do another exercise, etc., etc. And she went on to be OT and okay again. But it cured her. I took a guy who was an alcoholic. He was lucky when he could pee on it, on a toilet as opposed to a bar stool, and got him off of booze. And other people, I tended to get the rougher cases or the children, and that was fine with me. I
And
changed their lives.
that's when you were auditing for the mission?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But when you were down at ASHO, it was a very
I tried
different.
not to audit because they were just picky.
Right. But at the mission, it was a safe environment, and
Exactly.
yeah, a very different feel in a mission than an org, and then the Sea Org too.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah.
missions were the safe place. They were the farther away from Ron you were, the safer you were.
That is true.
Yeah, that's very true. And even my husband had recognized that. He was all excited to get, come up to the CMO and work with me and everyone else. And then he's like, he saw it was dangerous. It was
Right.
a lot of hard work and unpredictable.
In 1970, 1970, Valerie Schomer was sitting on my lap in Santa Clara, and I was reading her books. And then Homer took her away to the Sea Org, and within half a year, she was locked in a chain locker because she fell asleep at 2 a.m. outside of Hubbard's door.
Right.
She was, 6 years old, something like
Well,
that.
Yeah, I'd talked to Homer. She was 10 years old when she showed
Yeah.
up on the ship. And that's even younger than I was. I at least was 11.
Uh-huh. But, she got locked in the chain locker for days.
Yeah.
That was when I decided, no way do I ever get near that dude. And by that dude, I mean LRH.
Right.
Psycho.
Well, I fell asleep outside his office many times, but I guess I was lucky because I was a little older and I was more known to him that I didn't get thrown in the chain locker for falling asleep. But I did see that happen, and penalties for people of things that I managed to get away with that,
It's actually a terrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling because I can remember working for Miscavige and being up. He would stay up all night, and you had to stay there even if you had nothing to do, and you'd be sitting there at your desk, and the fighting that feeling of wanting to go to sleep was so hard because you knew that if you did fall asleep and they came in, you were in big trouble.
Yeah. Well, I'd wake up when my head would hit against the wall behind me. I'd fall asleep. Oh.
Uh-huh. Well, this is good to know.
Now, so did you leave Scientology? You said in '76. What I mean,
Yeah,
what happened?
76.
What went on then?
Well, several things had gone on. First of all, I'd done an OT3 in, say, 73, I'd say. And that was just bullshit. So that was one strike. And then something else bothered me about probably Hubbard. I don't know. And then in 76, that's when Hubbard started raising prices 10% a
Oh yeah,
month.
the price increases.
And that was
Oh,
when
yeah.
I walked away, because I had a little teeny center in my house in San Jose, and we called it the Jesus Christ Memorial Dianetic Counseling Center.
Did you
And
really?
yes, that's why I'm mentioning it. And
I never heard of that.
well, we started with 10 people on the comm course the first night, and that center has morphed over the years to the Los Gatos Center, to the Los Gatos Org. And now they'd be lucky if they had 10 people on all of their courses.
Yeah. Now you're saying this? You started this group when you
Yeah.
were still in Scientology,
Yeah, back
Yeah.
in, say, 73-ish.
right?
And now,
I
and
think
now
so.
it's an org.
Yeah, but we started with 10 people on the comm course.
Right.
We had PCs. It was real, but it was helping people back then. And when the rates started going up 10% a month, it shifted from helping people to shafting people.
Yeah.
So I left. I just quietly walked away. I didn't say anything to anybody other than friends if they mentioned it or whatever. But even my best friends didn't know I'd walked away. And my wife did the same thing, only she wasn't my wife at the time. But she was getting pushed to give them 10% because she had a school that used Scientology principles. And
Oh, when they
she
came
was,
out with Horizon. Yeah.
yeah, she was not about to give them 10% of her money. And so we both walked away quietly, because we knew that if you were noisy, you got declared and what have you. I just as soon kept my friends.
Well,
Right.
I was going to say that I was going to say, Ed, I got in Scientology when I was 14. My dad got in, and I got in when I was 14 in 1973, and I was in Washington, D.C. And the prices were very reasonable then. I mean, literally, me as a teenager, I would work in the summertime at minimum wage and make enough money in the summertime so that I could buy auditing during the school year at the org, and it was $500. I'll never forget $500 for a 12 and a half hour intensive of auditing. But because I was under 18, they discounted it down. So it was $325 for 12 and a half hours of counseling. Now it's thousands of dollars an hour. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he started those price increases. Was it 10% or 5%? It was every month.
10% a month.
A
Yeah.
month. So
I don't
like
know how long
February
it
this,
lasted.
10% more in March, then 10% in April. And
Yeah.
and it's ridiculous, but it was affordable. When I was a teenager, I was able to actually pay all the way up through my grade 4, by the time I was 17 years old,
Right. So I was 17 and I paid for my grades, and it was 600 something for the grades.
Yeah, it was not, and that's a lot of money back then. That sounded like a lot of money,
I
but it
was making
actually was pretty
25 an
reasonable.
hour when,
Yeah,
and they were charging 25 an hour.
yeah.
Well, I was 10 years old when I got my grades, and I wasn't working. I made no money. I got my grades because at St. Hill, they had so many auditors there
Student
on
auditors.
the academy levels. They had to go find PCs, pre-class.
Exactly.
So I got my auditing from James Byrne, who's still in the Sea Org, but I was 10 years old and he'd just arrived from South Africa on the academy levels. And so he took me in session for each of the levels, and because everyone had to find their own PC. It wasn't just supplied to them, or a paying PC wasn't just given to an auditor in training. And so that's how I got mine for free.
Right. And my wife did the grades on 2 of our kids at the beach on a beach blanket.
There you go.
Well, and Ed, this is something that we've had discussions with before, because I'm not a Scientologist anymore, right? But I also
No,
I,
you really?
I'll also tell the truth. The grades changed me for the better, for the positive. When I got my grades auditing as a teenager, it completely handled problems that I had, communication, things like that, that I still to this day, I still swear by the processing that I got then and how it changed me for the better. And people can badmouth Scientology and all that, and there's a lot to badmouth, but I still am, happy with the results that I got when I got my grades.
Good for you.
Yeah.
The difference between my doing grade 6 and clear was just like a rocket ride. I changed from a 17, 18, 20-year-old kid to a man. And that's by what my girlfriend said. She wouldn't have touched me before I went clear. And after I was clear, we were golden for half a decade. And we're still friends.
Right. Yeah. But that you're bringing up the buy now, the raising of the prices, that actually went on for years. And I remember when Hubbard left off and went off the lines in 1980, in early 1980, this buy now was still going on, and people were panicking because it was so much. And it wasn't stopping. And now Hubbard was gone off the lines. And I remember Mary Sue writing to Dee Dee Riesdorf, who was the commanding officer of the Commodore's Messenger Organ, WDC chairman. And Mary Sue wrote to her and said, we need to figure out something with this buy now, because it's just killing people. They can't afford it with the prices going up every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Regis were loving it because they were getting people at the end of the month to buy now before the prices went up. But Dee Dee and Mary Sue is like, okay, we need to do something. And Dee Dee made that decision as the person left in charge while Hubbard was gone. She made that decision to put a stop to the buy now.
Mm.
And when Hubbard came back on the lines, maybe 8 months later or a year later, and he found out that Dee Dee had stopped that buy now, he was so mad at her that that's the reason I thought she got removed as the commanding officer and busted to flag estates as a swamper, to clean public rooms. I mean, he was so furious, and I'm like, what's the big deal? It was like, it was out of control. But his whole mentality on money had totally switched by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Janice, I wonder because the buy now started in 76 or whatever, 76, 77, that
76.
time.
It did.
Was that was right before the FBI raids. And of course, then in 1980, he was in hiding because there had been the raids and the IRS was after him and this and that. And so he probably thought, I need money, so we're going to raise rates because I'm going to protect myself and we're going to need lots of money. I mean, wasn't that kind of his reasoning?
Yeah, well, you got to remember, March 76 was when he took off from Clearwater and went into hiding in Washington, D.C., because he'd blown his own security by talking science fiction with the tailor, who then word got to a reporter, and a reporter showed up at the United Churches Extension, King Arthur's Court in Dunedin. And there's a reporter in the bushes trying to get a story when Hubbard would go for a walk. And so at that time,
it's not to justify it, but that's kind of his paranoia is what drove that buy now. We need more. Because if you remember, Janice, when we were managing we were in Scientology, in the Sea Organization, there was Sea Org Reserves, which was the bank account, how much money was in there. And that was one of the most important things, was how much money do we have in the bank? You know what I mean? And
Right.
that was huge, because Hubbard was worried that basically was going to get wiped out, you know?
Yeah, if the IRS taxed the church, it would have wiped everything out, which is also why he kept wanting money to go to the European reserves, so it didn't come into the US, so it couldn't be taxed or part of, and I mean, he mentioned to me many, many times that he was trying to make a lot of money off of the book sales, so that if anything happened to the church and they lost their status or had to pay all this money, he could come in and have money to put it all back together.
And he was taking a lot of drugs also.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
No. Later on, he was taking, later on towards the end of his life, but not during this time period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, he was not a druggie. I've had that argument with other people who think they know better than me because I was just a stupid young kid. But that, there's limitations on what you can bring on board a ship or get around Hubbard. And there were no drug dealers selling him dope or anything like that.
All right.
What did you do when you left in '76? What did you end up doing? Did you continue doing some sort of Scientology, or?
I did. Yeah, I continue. I still audit every now and again. We didn't change our philosophy of life. We just went away from the greed. So
yeah, a lot of people did that.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of people did that, particularly the missions, because you were up in the Bay Area, so you were around a lot of really big missions, right? I mean, some of the biggest missions in the world were in the California Bay Area, right? Janice Davis and Palo Alto and all that, right?
Well, there were
Stevens
different
Creek.
philosophies. Stevens Creek and Davis did quantity. Palo Alto did quality. At Palo Alto, some of our clients included someone who'd walked on the moon, Uri Geller, who bent spoons on Johnny Carson's show, etc. I mean, a lot of SRI.
John Brody, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, he got in Scientology at the Palo Alto mission, I think.
Santa Clara, but with Phil.
Santa Clara. Okay, sorry.
His secretary and our secretary was the same person, Mary Roberts, and he was ready to quit football in 1970, I'd say.
Right.
And because he had a bad shoulder. And Mary said, try Phil. And so one day Phil's door was closed and everybody said, don't go there. And within a couple of weeks, John was feeling much better.
You're speaking of Phil Spickler, right? Phil Spickler, that's who you're talking about. He was the mission holder for Palo Alto, right?
No, he ran Palo Alto. Gifford Pinchot was the mission holder.
Okay.
But Phil was running it, and Phil was a good auditor. Was a good auditor.
He's passed away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away 4 years ago. But I was going to say, same thing, back in the 70s, my dad got involved with a mission as well. And it was much more personal. It was much more personal, taking care of the people that were there, getting their processing or doing training. It was not this big organization where like you're just a number, right? I mean, It was much more, and I know a lot of public like myself, even though I was at an organization, I desired to be at a mission because they treated you better.
Exactly. And you were safer from Sea Org people trying to get you to donate or join or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I remember growing up in a mission. My parents both ran the Melbourne mission, and it was so comfortable and everyone was friendly. And then we'd go over to the org, in downtown Melbourne, and it was dingy and dark and dirty, and
Yeah.
it wasn't friendly. It was a different atmosphere, and people used to come back to our mission rather than continuing through the org because they preferred the joy that went on at the mission.
Exactly. John Brody, who you mentioned, went and got power at Asho and came back and said he was never going to do Scientology again. But Phil cleaned him up.
Yeah.
And that was that. So, yeah, we were.
Well, after you cleaned him up, he did do more Scientology because I remember in the
he was
70s.
at Clearwater.
Right.
Well, he was at
That's my
Celebrity
point.
Center first,
Yeah.
and then later Clearwater. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him in Clearwater.
Anyway, no, he just had a bad experience with Pemwall.
I understand. So let me ask you this, Ed. What is your, looking back on it now, many years later, what are your feelings towards, the Scientology that you learned and that you actually delivered to, different people and stuff like that? How do you feel about that now?
Still good. The stuff we did was good. We weren't regging people for money. We were regging people for effectiveness. You'd start the session with, what goals do you have for the session? And that's what you were aiming for. Fixing somebody, helping someone to fix themselves in that time. And that's never going to go bad. That's just talking to people and getting them to look at stuff and change their minds.
Yeah, and for our never-ends who are watching, the satisfaction you get of auditing somebody and helping them with their problems, and you're sitting across from them and you see them change, and the realizations and the cognitions that we used to say that they would have, it would blow you away as well as the person who was receiving that auditing. I mean, you felt fantastic, like you were really truly doing something to help someone, right, Ed?
And you were, yeah. There was a time, say in the late 70s, I audited somebody over the phone. He'd never had a session before. He was in South Africa. I was in California. And it was his first session, and he went whole track, and he was being hunted by Nazis. And I thought, I'm either going to fuck this up so bad, and he's never going to want to have anything to do with me, or this is going to turn out great. And it turned out great. And he's still getting auditing, but not in Scientology.
Right. In the independent field?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, when Ed said whole track, that means he's going past lives. So he's remembering when he was a Nazi or he was attacked by a Nazis or whatever. And that's referred to as whole track. And then, being a space alien and all that kind of stuff is also whole track.
Right.
Yes. Or just being around Lincoln or whatever, anything before this life.
Yes.
Now, Ed, let me ask you a question. So from 76 on, so did you just sort of keep track of what was going on, sort of from the outside of Scientology? Like, you obviously never had any interactions with David Miscavige or anything like that, but did you know people who were still involved in Scientology that were having to experience that?
I had Charlie Rush as a friend who was in the Sea Org from 1970-ish to his death.
I know Charlie. We knew Charlie. Both of us did. Yeah.
And there are others who are still my friends who are still in either the Sea Org or just in general. Right. And yeah, we're still friends.
I understand.
Yeah. It's good to have long-term friends. I always enjoy that.
Right.
And then let me ask you another question. This is,
sure.
You can answer if you want or not. What's your opinion? I mean, Janice and I have opinions about L. Ron Hubbard, right? Well, what's your opinion about Hubbard?
Well, I think he can I backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So when I was escaping the draft at age 18, I checked everything on the draft board form. Homosexual, bad hearing,
Flatfoot.
minister, you
Yes.
name it.
Stay
Checked.
stay out of Vietnam. Yeah, stay out of
Yeah,
Vietnam.
I checked everything. And the first letter I got back from the draft board. Now, the draft board is several individuals in a locality, and they're all influential individuals. And the first letter I got back was, send us a letter from somebody you know saying you're a conscientious objector. And I was standing by Robbie's car, and Al Rabisi was standing by Robbie's car. And I said, Al, will you write me a letter saying I'm a conscientious objector? And he did, right on the spot. Took 15 minutes. And I sent it into the draft board. Well, when I got into the draft board for a live in-person interview with the draft board, the first question out of the head of the draft board's mouth was, how do you know Dr. Al Rabisi? And I said, well, his friends, his kids are my friends. And I didn't mention that Dr. Albert Rabisi, who was a world famous heart surgeon and president of O'Connor Hospital, hadn't written the letter. But I mean, he would have had I asked him, but he didn't. But Al Rabisi wrote the letter, and because Al Rabisi wrote the letter, I got a conscientious objector status when I had hair down past my shoulders, was wearing bell-bottom trousers, a black turtleneck, and didn't look like your normal conscientious wingtip wearing Christian goody two-shoes. And I knew any number of Christian goody two-shoes who couldn't get conscientious objector status, and I got it right then and there.
Well,
So,
isn't that Dr. Al Rabisi there in the middle on the left?
that's Al Rabisi there. That's not
Yeah.
that's Al Rabisi
That's the
Jr.
son.
Yeah. Anyway, and as I was leaving the draft board, in my space, there was this ethereal celebration going on of spiritual beings, for lack of a better word. Guardian angels, spiritual teammates, whatever you want to call them. But they had set this up. They had Albert there at the time, and they had made that happen. And they were celebrating. And so when Hubbard started getting rid of his spiritual teammates, his guardian angels, that's when he started really declining, I think. Now, that's just my thing. But you asked me what I thought. That's what I think. He was on a path to get rid of all of his friends in the spiritual world and just be himself. And I think being alone is the most awful feeling in the world. So
Yeah.
that's
I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you. After we left, I started, looking into what was going on here. And you're right. He went after people that were his most trusted people. He got rid of them. David Mayo saved his life. Oh, get rid of him. He's a squirrel. We got to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Let's sue him into oblivion. You know what I mean? Get rid of Dee Dee Riesdorf. Get rid of all these different people who were around him. And there's more than that. I'm just not going to think of.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
But, and then Miscavige carried it on because anybody who was ever close to Hubbard and actually knew what Hubbard wanted to do in terms of, expansion and clearing the planet, quote unquote, got rid of those people too. So it's just Miscavige just running with a bunch of people who know nothing about, what the goals and aims of Scientology were at the time.
Precisely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
I think we've come to an end here.
Right.
Yes, we
Ed,
have.
Ed, it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
had no
I've enjoyed it
what we
too.
were have come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me go ahead and do my little business here. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Janice?
Buy some koala calm.
Right down below, hit that Qualcomm. You can order it, and yeah, it'll help you sleep at night. You know, we got some good comments off of our last video that we did off of that. But anyway, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. It helps get the word out and message out to people. Had any questions or comments about what we talked about, go down below and put them in there. Janice wants to hear from you about her liquid vitamins, you know, with
That's
caffeine.
right.
And
There
then if
is
you'd
no
like to,
caffeine in it.
okay, good. And if you'd like to support our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the description down below. We really appreciate any support. It just goes right back into the channel. And, you know, and then finally, if you'd like to be a member of the channel, right next to the subscribe button, there's a join button. You click on that and you can become a member of our channel. It's another way to support the channel. I mean, we do this because we love doing it, but also it helps us as well. Yeah, if you become a member and show some support. So we really appreciate the people that have been members for over a year now, and we really do appreciate that support from everybody there. Ed, we appreciate you being here. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
Well,
No, it's
thank
been
you.
fun. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Is right. Okay, everybody. Until next time, Ed, Janice, everybody else. Bye bye. We'll see you next time.
Bye.